The restaurant in Dallas was polished enough to reflect lies. Soft amber lighting, white tablecloths, a pianist somewhere near the bar pressing out slow jazz that tried too hard to sound intimate. The kind of place people choose when they want to perform happiness in public. I had reserved the table 3 weeks earlier. Laura liked places like that. She said they made her feel seen. The girls liked them because they could post photos from them. Filtered plates, filtered smiles, filtered family. I paid for visibility. We sat near the window, the skyline behind us like a glittering backdrop. Emma crossed her legs and adjusted her hair before every photo. Claire angled her glass just right so the restaurant's logo showed in the frame. Laura smiled the way she does when she knows the bill won't touch her account. I watched them. 5 years. 5 years of stepping into a house that already had history carved into its walls. Photos of another man still boxed in the attic but never truly gone. Stories that began with "when Dad used to" and ended with silence when I entered the room. I told myself patience was strength. I told myself consistency would earn respect. I told myself that love, even when unreturned, was still love. But love without acknowledgement begins to rot. The waiter poured wine. I nodded at the price without blinking. The bottle alone cost what my father used to make in a week. I didn't hesitate. I never did, because I was building something. Private school tuition, $60,000 a year between the two of them. Paid without complaint. I told the accountant to transfer it automatically. Education is non-negotiable, I said. They never knew the numbers. They only knew the uniforms arrived pressed and the registration emails stopped once payment cleared. Medical insurance, top-tier coverage. Orthodontics, allergy specialists. Therapy sessions when Claire said she felt emotionally overwhelmed. I signed every form, swiped every card, sat in waiting rooms like a silent sponsor. Laura's SUV, brand new. She said the old one made her anxious, said it felt unreliable. I surprised her with the upgrade. Red bow on the hood. She cried when she saw it. The girls took selfies with it before thanking me. The house in Austin. Expanded kitchen, hardwood floors, redesigned master bathroom. Emma wanted a larger closet. Claire wanted a study nook with built-in shelves. Laura wanted an open-concept living area for entertaining. I gave them walls that cost more than the house I grew up in. Vacations in Florida. Beachfront rentals. First-class flights when Claire said coach made her feel cramped. Laptops. iPhones. Designer sneakers. Emma's startup idea. A lifestyle app that never made it past the beta phase. $20,000 dissolved into ambition and silence. Everything labeled our family. But I was always the one paying. Back in the restaurant, the steaks arrived. Medium rare for me. Filet mignon for Laura. The girls barely looked up. Emma leaned back in her chair. The overhead lighting caught the gloss on her lips. She glanced at Claire, that conspiratorial half-smile passing between sisters who know they are untouchable. "You know what's funny?" Emma said, loud enough for the neighboring table to catch the rhythm of her voice. Claire raised an eyebrow. "What?" She tilted her head toward me. "He's basically just an ATM with a ring." Claire's laugh wasn't accidental. It was sharp, performed, meant to be heard. The pianist kept playing. A couple at the next table went quiet. My fork paused in midair. For a split second, I waited for Laura to do what a wife is supposed to do. To correct them. To remind them who financed their security. To remind them that respect isn't optional. Instead, she took a slow sip of wine. Then she looked at me. Not angry. Not embarrassed. Just composed. "Mind your own business," she said. Not to them. To me. The meaning was clear. Absorb it. Don't escalate. Don't disrupt the mood. The girls smirked. I nodded once. Cut into my steak. Chewed deliberately. Swallowed. I tasted salt, but it wasn't from the seasoning. Public humiliation doesn't always arrive as shouting. Sometimes it comes as a casual joke everyone agrees is acceptable. I finished my plate. Paid the bill before the check even fully settled on the table. Left a generous tip. because even humiliation apparently was something I funded. The drive home was quiet except for the glow of their screens. Emma laughing at something online. Claire scrolling. Laura staring out the window like the city lights held more interest than the man driving her home. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. No one mentioned the comment. No one apologized. Silence is a form of agreement. When we pulled into the driveway of the renovated house, the house my credit score built, the garage light flickered on automatically. Motion sensor. Installed during renovation. Everything automated. Except respect. Inside, they scattered to their corners of the house. Emma upstairs. Claire behind her. Laura in the kitchen, placing her purse down like it had carried weight. I walked to my office, closed the door, turned off the light, sat in the dark. For years, I had told myself this was temporary, that teenagers test boundaries, that blended families require sacrifice, that my role was to endure until gratitude matured. But endurance without acknowledgement is self-erasure. I opened my phone, logged into my banking app. The numbers stared back at me. Cold, obedient, precise. Authorized users. Emma. Freeze card. Authorized users. Claire. Freeze card. Laura's secondary access. Restricted. Shared credit line. Closed. Autopay tuition. Cancelled. Insurance drafts. Removed. Vacation savings account. Transferred to a private holding. Every click was silent. No yelling. No accusations. Just adjustments. If I was an ATM, then I would operate like one. And machines can shut down. When I finally entered the bedroom, Laura was lying on her side, breathing slow, maybe asleep, maybe pretending. I lay beside her and stared at the ceiling fan spinning above us. 5 years of investment. 5 years of swallowing comments. 5 years of believing provision equals belonging. That night, something shifted. Not anger. Clarity. The next morning, I left before sunrise. By mid-morning, my phone vibrated. Laura. Ignored. Again. Ignored. Then Emma. Then Claire. Voicemails stacking like receipts. At noon, I answered. Laura's voice was tight, controlled in the way people are when panic is trying to claw through their throat. Why are the cards declining? Background noise? Grocery store scanners. Emma whispering, try the other one. Declined. Then the second. Then the third. I could hear it in their breathing. Confusion turning to embarrassment. Why can't we pay for groceries? Laura asked. I leaned back in my office chair, looking at the skyline through the glass wall. Maybe, I said evenly. The ATM got tired. Silence. Then anger rising. You're overreacting. No, I replied. I'm recalibrating. I ended the call. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't funding the illusion. And as I set my phone down, I felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Dignity. Tell me, when a man is reduced to a machine in his own family, is he wrong for finally turning himself off? I didn't go home early that day. Not because I was afraid of the confrontation, because I wasn't. I stayed at the office and worked through reports I didn't care about. Numbers that felt cleaner than conversations. Numbers don't smirk. Numbers don't humiliate you in public and call it humor. They either balance, or they don't. By 6 o'clock, my phone battery had bled down to 20%. Missed calls stacked like accusations. Laura, Emma, Claire, then Laura again. Text messages followed. Call me. This isn't funny. The bank says there's a restriction. Did you do this? I read them all. I didn't answer. When I finally drove home, the house lights were blazing. Every room lit up like an interrogation chamber. The SUV, my SUV, was parked crooked in the driveway. I stepped inside. The air felt different, tight, charged. Laura was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed. Emma leaned against the counter, pale. Claire sat at the table with her phone in front of her like evidence in a trial. They all looked at me, not warmly, not apologetically, demanding. Laura spoke first. What did you do? I set my keys down, took off my jacket, hung it carefully in the closet. I adjusted access, I said. Emma scoffed. Adjusted access? We were at the grocery store. The cards all declined. Yes. Claire's voice cracked slightly. It was embarrassing. I looked at her. Embarrassing. The word hung between us. You know what's embarrassing? I asked quietly. Being called an ATM in a restaurant full of strangers. Emma rolled her eyes. Oh my God. It was a joke. A joke, I repeated. Laura stepped forward. You're a grown man. You don't punish children over a joke. Children. They were old enough to drive, old enough to mock, old enough to understand what they were saying. Grown men, I said calmly, don't fund people who publicly reduce them to a wallet. Emma's jaw tightened. We didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? Silence. Claire looked at Laura, waiting for rescue. Laura sighed, the way she does when she thinks I'm being difficult. You're being sensitive. Sensitive. 5 years of tuition, insurance premiums, car payments, renovation loans, vacation deposits. Sensitive. I walked to my office without raising my voice, without slamming a door. They followed me. I opened the laptop, logged in again. Since clarity seems necessary, I said, turning the screen toward them. I pulled up the expense summary. Private school tuition transfers, insurance drafts, vehicle financing, credit line utilization, Emma's startup investment, Florida vacation payments, total expenditures over 5 years. The number glowed on the screen. No one spoke. Emma swallowed. Claire's eyes widened. Laura looked away. This, I said quietly, is what an ATM dispenses. Laura's voice softened slightly. No one said you weren't appreciated. Appreciation? I replied. Doesn't sound like laughter. Emma crossed her arms. So what? You're just cutting us off? Over pride? Over clarity. The word landed heavier than any insult. I stood up straight. As of yesterday, I continued, all authorized access is frozen. Tuition autopay is canceled. The shared credit line is closed. Household discretionary spending is restricted. Laura stared at me. You can't do that. I just did. You're punishing the whole family. I met her eyes directly. No, I'm redefining my role. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it now. So what? We're supposed to beg? No, I said. You're supposed to understand. Claire's voice was smaller now. Understand what? That words have weight. Laura stepped closer, lowering her voice. This is financial abuse. I almost smiled. Financial abuse, I said slowly, is using someone's resources while stripping them of dignity. Silence swallowed the room. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I simply closed the laptop. I'll continue paying the mortgage, I added evenly. The utilities, the basics. I won't sabotage the roof over our heads. Emma frowned. So what are we supposed to do? I looked at her. Start acting like the world doesn't owe you access. That night, dinner was quiet. No music, no scrolling, no laughter, just forks against plates. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. I was the problem, and strangely, that felt honest. The next morning came faster than usual. At 7:12 a.m., my phone rang. Laura. I answered. Her voice was tight again, but now there was panic underneath it. We're at the gas station. The card won't work. I know. Emma has school. She can carpool. Silence. Then, this is insane. No, I said calmly. This is structure. She hung up on me. By noon, Emma texted. The tuition office emailed. Payment overdue. Claire. My dance class subscription was canceled. Laura, we need to talk. We did talk. That evening, she came into my office alone, closed the door behind her. They were joking, she said softly. Teenagers say stupid things, and adults decide whether to tolerate them. You're tearing this family apart. No, I replied. It was already cracked. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. She sat down across from me. You know they depend on you. Yes, I said. I do. And you're okay with watching them struggle? I leaned back in my chair. They wanted the real world. They mocked the machine. Now they get to see what happens when it powers down. Her eyes filled with something between anger and fear. This isn't you. I held her gaze. It is, I said. It's just the part of me that finally stopped absorbing impact. She stood up slowly. You're going to regret this. Maybe. But regret and dignity don't share the same house. After she left the room, I sat alone again. The house felt different. Not warm. Not hostile. Balanced. For the first time in 5 years, every dollar in my account felt like it belonged to me. No automatic drafts. No silent extractions. Just numbers. Clear. Honest. Tell me, when a man is valued only for what he provides, is he wrong for testing what happens when he provides nothing beyond the minimum? Is restraint cruelty? Or is it the first act of self-respect? The house didn't explode. Compressed. Pressure instead of noise. For 3 days, no one joked. No one smirked. The atmosphere felt like glass. Transparent and fragile. Ready to shatter if someone breathed too hard. Emma stopped asking for rides. Claire stopped leaving shopping tabs open on her laptop. Laura stopped mentioning grocery lists. But tension doesn't disappear. It reorganizes. On the 4th day, Laura showed up at my office. Unannounced. She walked past the receptionist like she owned the building. Maybe she thought she did. For 5 years, my income had blurred that line for her. When she stepped into my office, I didn't stand. She closed the door behind her. We need to fix this, she said immediately. Her tone wasn't angry this time. It was strategic. There's nothing broken, I replied. Her jaw tightened. You know what I mean. I folded my hands on the desk. Calm. Measured. No heat left in me. The girls were joking, she continued. You know how teenagers are. They push buttons. You're taking this too personally. Too personally. Public humiliation, endorsed by my wife, in a restaurant full of strangers. Yes, I said. I took it personally. You're a grown man. And grown men, I said evenly, don't fund people who publicly reduce them to infrastructure. She exhaled sharply. So what? You're just going to make them suffer? Suffer, I repeated. They're not starving. They still have a roof, electricity, water, food in the pantry. You froze everything. I froze excess. She stared at me like I had betrayed something sacred. You're punishing children to protect your ego. I leaned forward slightly. No, I said quietly. I'm protecting my dignity. The word landed heavy between us. She softened her voice. A different tactic. They need stability. Emma's tuition. Claire's extracurriculars. These things matter. I agree, I said. They matter. Then why are you jeopardizing them? I'm not. I'm relocating responsibility. Her eyes narrowed. To who? I held her gaze. To their father. The silence that followed was dense. He doesn't have your money, she said. I'm aware. He can't cover what you cover. I'm aware. So you're setting them up to fail. I shook my head slowly. No. I'm stepping back so they can see who's actually carrying them. She stood up. This is revenge. It's clarity. She laughed bitterly. Clarity doesn't involve lawyers. That caught my attention. Lawyers? I asked. You think I don't see what you're doing? Separate accounts. Closed credit lines. You think I don't notice? I didn't blink. Transparency, I said. Not secrecy. That afternoon, I did what I should have done years ago. I called my attorney. No drama. No threats. Just logistics. Asset separation. Account restructuring. Property assessment. The house in Austin listed for valuation. Investment portfolio transferred to a private trust. New account singular access. No joint cards. No shared liabilities. Not out of anger. Out of structure. If they wanted the real world, they could start participating in it. When I got home that evening, the girls were in the living room. Waiting. Emma spoke first. So you're really doing this? Yes. Claire's voice was softer. Dad? She stopped herself. The word hung in the air, uncertain. I waited. She corrected herself. You're really cutting us off? I'm removing automatic access. Emma's expression hardened. Because of one comment? Because of 5 years of confirmation. That's dramatic. Is it? She didn't answer. Claire looked down at her hands. We didn't think you'd care. There it was. Honest. Small. Revealing. You didn't think I'd care, I repeated. Emma scoffed. It was just a joke. No, I said quietly. It was a belief. Laura entered the room. You're scaring them, she said. I'm educating them. On what? That provision is not entitlement. Emma stood up. You're trying to control us. No, I replied. I'm withdrawing from being controlled. The room fell silent again. For the first time, there was no laughter behind their eyes. Only calculation. Only uncertainty. Only the slow realization that money is quiet power, and power had shifted. Over the next week, reality tightened around them. Emma began looking for part-time work. Claire asked about budgeting. Laura stopped ordering wine with dinner. Small adjustments. Small fractures. Laura approached me again, softer this time. Let's talk this through, she said. We are. No ultimatums. No threats. Just repair. I studied her face. For years, I had mistaken dependency for unity. Now I saw the difference. I'm not angry, I said honestly. You look cold. I feel clear. She sat across from me. What do you want? The question lingered. Respect. Apology. Recognition. I want alignment, I said finally. If I'm part of this family, I'm not a machine. If I'm not part of this family, I'm not funding it. And if they say they were wrong, then behavior changes. And if it doesn't, then structure remains. No yelling, no slam doors, just consequences. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. But this time I didn't feel humiliated. I felt recalibrated. They had called me an ATM. They had laughed. Laura had told me to mind my business. Now the business was mine alone. The following week, I received a message from Emma. I got an interview. Short, direct, no emojis. I responded. Good. Claire asked about setting up her own bank account. I helped her fill out the paperwork. Laura watched quietly. For the first time in years, I wasn't absorbing their weight. They were adjusting their own. A week changed everything. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. The smirks disappeared first. Emma stopped leaning back in chairs like the world was hers by default. Claire no longer rolled her eyes when I entered a room. Laura moved differently in the house. Slower, more cautious, like someone walking across thin ice. Consequence is a silent teacher. The grocery runs were smaller now. No imported cheeses. No premium wine. The SUV stayed parked more often. Emma began asking about bus schedules. Claire Googled part-time jobs near me at the kitchen table. For 5 years, I had been the invisible engine under their comfort. Now they could hear the silence where it used to hum. Laura approached me on Sunday evening. Can we talk? She asked. Her voice didn't carry accusation anymore. Carried uncertainty. We sat across from each other at the dining table. The same table where holiday dinners had taken place. Where I had carved turkeys and financed traditions. The house was quiet. The girls were upstairs. I didn't realize how much you were covering, she said. I didn't answer. She continued. I knew you paid most of it. I didn't see the full picture. That's the point, I said calmly. You weren't supposed to see it. You were supposed to respect it. Her eyes lowered. I should have stopped them, she admitted. Yes. Silence. I thought it was harmless, she added softly. Humiliation is rarely harmless, I replied. Upstairs, a door closed. Footsteps. Then hesitation. Emma appeared at the edge of the hallway. Can I say something? She asked. I nodded. She walked into the room slower than I'd ever seen her move. I got the job, she said. At the cafe. That's good. She swallowed. It's minimum wage. That's where most people start. Her jaw tightened slightly, but she didn't argue. I didn't think about what I said, she continued. At the restaurant. I watched her carefully. I know, I said. That doesn't make it better. No, it doesn't. Claire stepped in behind her sister. I have an interview tomorrow, she said quietly. For what? Bookstore. Part-time. I nodded once. Laura looked between us. This isn't how I imagined family working, she whispered. I leaned back in my chair. Neither did I. There it was. Truth without volume. Emma looked directly at me. We didn't think you'd actually stop. I know. Claire asked. Do you hate us? The question surprised me. No, I said honestly. I stopped hating myself. That landed harder than anything else had. They didn't speak after that. For the first time since Dallas, there was no defensiveness. No sarcasm. No performance. Just reality. Over the next few days, routines shifted. Emma left early for her shift at the cafe. She came home tired, quiet, counting tips at the counter. Claire studied job applications like they mattered. Laura began budgeting out loud, writing numbers on paper instead of assuming they would resolve themselves. The atmosphere in the house felt different. Not warm, but honest. One evening, Emma approached me in the garage while I was reorganizing tools. I didn't understand what money actually means, she said. I kept tightening a bolt. It means effort, I replied. She nodded slowly. I thought it just existed. It never does. Claire joined us a minute later. We used you, she said bluntly. It wasn't cruel. It was factual. Yes, I said. And you let us, she added. I paused. Yes. Laura stood in the doorway. I let it happen, she said quietly. I wiped my hands with a cloth. 5 years, I said. I kept telling myself respect would catch up to provision. And it didn't, Laura whispered. No. Silence stretched. Then Emma spoke again. I'm sorry. Not dramatic. Not tearful. Just direct. Claire echoed her. Laura's eyes filled. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a wallet sitting at the head of the table. I felt seen. But clarity doesn't erase consequence. The house in Austin remained listed. The joint credit lines stayed closed. The accounts stayed separate. Emma asked about contributing to her own tuition. Claire asked how insurance deductibles worked. Laura asked if we could rebuild slowly. I'm not leaving, I told her. But I'm not funding disrespect. She nodded. I understand. That night, I lay in bed without staring at the ceiling in resentment. I stared at it in evaluation. For years, I believed sacrifice guaranteed loyalty. It doesn't. Sacrifice without boundaries breeds entitlement. Boundaries without anger breed respect. The next weekend, we returned to a restaurant. Not the same one. Smaller. Quieter. When the bill came, Emma looked at me. Can I cover dessert? She asked. Claire added, I'll get the tip. Laura didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I let them. It wasn't about the money. It was about weight. Shared weight. For 5 years, I had carried the entire structure alone. And they had mistaken my strength for permanence. Now they understood something they hadn't before. Nothing is permanent without respect. Later that night, Emma paused at the doorway of my office. You're not an ATM, she said. I looked up. I know, I replied. She hesitated. You're part of this. I studied her face. Words matter, but patterns matter more. We'll see, I said, and I meant it, because reconciliation isn't a switch. It's a rebuild. Laura joined me after the girls went to bed. You were ready to walk away, weren't you? She asked. Yes. Would you have? Yes. She nodded slowly. I didn't realize how close we were to losing you. I stood by the window looking out at the darkened yard. You already had, I said. That's the truth people miss. Disrespect doesn't break a man instantly. It erodes him. Quietly. until one day he chooses himself. And when he does, it looks sudden. But it never is. Tell me, if a man finally refuses to be reduced to a function, is he cruel? Or is he simply reclaiming the one thing no one else was protecting for him? Would you have endured it longer? Or would you have powered down sooner?